Some different candidates for you tonight.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Taco Comfort Solutions.
Welcome in on this Friday evening. If you've been watching all week, you know that we've had some interesting production schedules, and so this particular new program for you on Friday is actually being recorded on Wednesday. So we're unable to react to a hearing if it happened in Washington tomorrow as we speak, yesterday as you see this, but we will definitely pick up the pieces on Monday with a same day, same bat channel type of production for you. Crazy, right? Also, Thursday night, last night, you saw a debate between the gubernatorial candidates here in Rhode Island, hosted by Channel 12, Tim White and Ted Nesi, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of things to say about that next week as well. And of course, at least the radio is live every day, weekdays 3 to 6 on WPRO, and your participation is always welcome. You know, the field of candidates for different races is always a challenge for broadcasters. You know, who do you pay attention to? Who earns the right to get broadcast time? With debates, it's a little bit more precarious. You know, it's that's valuable real estate. But we like to spread it out a little bit here and talk to people who say they want to be elected by you and perhaps are not very well known. And so tonight we're going to meet two candidates, one running for Congress, one running for Attorney General. And it should be interesting. So with no further ado, here was the news that Patrick Donovan won the GOP nomination for House District 1, which is, well, the districts are kind of funky. You know, he's from Newport. You'd think that we could just split the state, you know, but no. District 1, David Cicilline's seat, goes down and around the East Bay. And have you figured out how the whole district works yet?
All the way to Woonsocket. Yeah, wonderful.
Have you traveled the district?
Absolutely.
You have?
Yep.
All right. Well, congratulations on being the Republican nominee. Did you have to work hard for it?
Well, it's just me. So I gather worked hard enough to get the signatures, to get out there and get my name out there.
Well, I thought you had defeated Fred Wysocki for
That's true.
For this nomination.
Yes.
So it wasn't just you.
No, I'm saying in regards to getting my name out there and visiting with the people in Rhode Island to introduce myself.
Okay. Quick bio.
Quick bio. Houseman for the last 24 years, stay-at-home dad of 4 children. Our youngest just went off to college. So seeing what's going on here, when we came back in the beginning of June, that there was no one running against David Cicilline, and I believe that he has not done a good job for the first congressional district. I don't think he's represented the interests, the needs of the people living here, primarily the people in the median income. Not the middle income, the median income.
So before we get into that, so you're what did you refer to yourself as? A houseman? Houseman. I never heard that term before.
Well, we started a Verein in a group in Switzerland when we lived there for 4 years, these other men and myself. And they took it and we used that name, and Germany has now accepted it as part of their filing, so that when you file papers, the same thing with Switzerland, that you designate yourself as someone who is no longer working or retired out, and your wife is working, and or whatever way you want to, slice it. Sure. But as a stay-at-home dad, that was what we designated ourselves.
Former, before you made this life change, you did what for a living?
I was a financial planner down in New York. Started out as a clerk in back office of Wall Street and worked my way up to that, and then moved out to California. While in California, I did that for 10 years in New York, and then to California, and worked as a bellman at the Ritz-Carlton Marina del Rey. And then while there, I got hired as a specialty chemical salesman by one of the guests. He said, "Come with me," and so that worked out really well.
All right. Cicilline is a problem. Why?
You have, as a federal representative, there are things that you can bring to the country, to the country, to this district that are necessary. One of them would be 3 cents a kilowatt power coming out of Canada. You could push the country, to the federal government, to say, yeah, we're going to bring that in here. It's hydroelectric, it's green energy, it's tons of it, it's excess, and they wanted to sell it to us for over 10 years. All sorts of negotiations are going on. New Hampshire doesn't want it because they don't want the power lines up in the air for the leaf peepers. I get it. Okay. Stick the engineers on the problem and put the line on the ground. But let's get going. This is 3 cents a kilowatt, not 14 cents, not 33 cents for the solar subsidized. You're crushing.
Well, this is the purview of a congressman. Why?
Because it's interstate commerce.
And if you were elected, you would pursue this project how?
Well, first I would bring in the people who are negotiating for this, and I have met some of them who have been doing this for some time, and they have all the players in line. The problem is that National Grid doesn't want it. And the PUC says, oh, you know what, let's give them whatever they want. Doesn't really matter. Okay, that's interesting. But it matters to me. It matters to the cost of all the things that happen here in Rhode Island.
Support the wind farm?
Offshore? No.
Why?
It's dead above and it's dead below. The wind speed tip is going to be 400 miles an hour. Anything that comes in contact gets shredded. Below, marine life doesn't like living there, so it's not there. Same thing is happening wherever they're putting it offshore.
Where does your level of expertise come in to determine that?
That would be from my readings of what's been going on in Europe with their offshore wind farms.
Was your time in Europe what advised you on this matter? Your experience living there?
Absolutely, because they love it. They love the idea of it. They talk of it. They are invested in it dramatically, and yet they have done the research on it. And they've said, oh yeah, this is what goes on. Well, maybe it's the electromagnetic forces of the power line coming down, and that's why the marine life doesn't like living there. I can't tell you all of that, but it doesn't, and it's not there.
All right, when we come back, what else Mr. Donovan stands for. And later on in the broadcast, a candidate for Attorney General. Yes, Peter Neronha does have some opposition. Stay with us. Our first District Congressman David Cicilline, his opposition on the Republican side is from Patrick Donovan. You seem like a serious and articulate guy. I'm always puzzled as to what the purposefulness is of candidacies that are underfunded, pretty well unknown. Tell me what it is.
Looking from the outside in as a citizen and seeing that there are things that we can do to assist people to live a better life in our state. There are things that if they don't know of them, the people who are elected, who have been involved in this a long time, they ought to. And if they do know of them and they don't do them, then they're doing a disservice to the electorate. That is why. And the idea that he would run unopposed, which is the reason why I signed in at the last minute. I went 10 minutes to 4 down to the Secretary of State's office and signed up because they were saying nobody's running against him. I thought it was absurd.
Well, it's interesting. That sounds like a credible answer to me. The reason why people run is varied. I have to be careful not to prejudge motive. The idea that Cicilline runs unopposed bothered you enough to get into the race, I buy that. But clearly it's token opposition. So
it certainly could be.
Well, there's no doubt that it is, and so
right. But it's up to the public to actually get out there and make their vote count. Even if they vote for him, even if they write somebody in or do whatever they want to do, the idea that we have so many people who have taken a powder from, their right of franchise to get out there and make a decision, make a positive decision, instead of it being, oh, I'm not going to vote at all. Give them something else to vote for. Yeah.
So is this an itch to scratch, meaning it's something you've been thinking about, or it was a direct reaction to seeing an empty ballot on the Republican side? Is this the beginning of something for you, or is this a one-time, hey, this isn't right, we shouldn't have a congressman run unopposed? Tell me.
Yes, I would not stop. I would actually try to reinvigorate what should be some sort of opposition to the status quo here.
Meaning this is the beginning of something for you?
Yes.
Because you felt that way when, as you said, you ran down the Secretary of State's office, or since you've been engaged in this, you feel a sense of more focus or mission or what?
Yeah, I'll go with that, with mission. Went down there with the idea that somebody had to, okay? It would have been great if somebody else did it. It would have been fantastic if they had more, I don't know, experience in government, but I don't think that really is necessary, because what he's done as our elected representative is bupkis and insulting. The idea that he ranted on in the Strzok committee meeting, he looked childish. That's what you're going to go with? Oh, this is a safe district. So all you fools out there in Rhode Island, I'm going to just go out here.
What did he say about that particular investment?
Well, I believe it was shame is right. What he was chanting at pointed questions towards a person who held the badge in Washington, D.C. at the FBI, who is beneath contempt as far as I'm concerned. Watching this thing roll out, and we'll see what happens. Do they indict him? I think so. Okay, and I think that he swore in front of them. He's talked to other FBI agents because they investigate their own. And guess what? I guess if you lie to them, you can go to jail, right? I mean, isn't that what's happening with Mr. Mueller's investigation? If you lie to him or make a mistake on a date, as simple as that, well, we got you. Okay, well, you're trying to tell me that Strzok didn't do this stuff? And here he is, listen, he's a trained lawyer, Representative Cicilline. And he's looking at this, he goes, you know what, me and Nadler, we're safe. So we're going to go out there and talk this trash. He should not be the representative of this congressional district.
All right, give me a couple of litmus test questions. Donald Trump, you view him how?
As a guy who's trying to get some stuff done so that people can actually have manufacturing jobs and that type of thing here in the United States, and it's working.
Did you vote for him?
Absolutely.
Would you vote for him again?
Yep.
The way he has comported himself matters to you, yes or no?
Oh, yeah. Do I like it? No. I'm originally from New York. I remember how he behaved, okay? This is his persona. This is how he's going to do it. I tune it out, okay? Do I want to watch it? No. Am I interested in watching it? No. The other side's very interested in watching it because they're absorbed by it.
How do you compartmentalize that way?
I've been a stay-at-home dad for 24 years with 4 children. I compartmentalize a lot of stuff, okay? You hear lots of different things that you really don't want to hear, but yet you have to hear them because you have to have an open line of communication with children. And you have to say, okay, how do I act as a better adult? And that's how you do it.
What is your experience domestically? I mean, it's unique. What's it done to advise you about your life perspective?
Things that I never wanted to hear. Okay, like pill parties. Okay, that your children would go someplace and their acquaintances would be doing this, and they come home and they are terrified by it. And I said, okay, well, let's talk this out, okay? And let's game this out. Do you want to be around something like that? You have to have the conversation. Never experienced anything like that in my life.
That wouldn't have been something, if you were a working dad, you'd be aware of either?
I don't think so, because you're really, it all depends. I mean, if you're working real close to home and you have the time to actually have those conversations with your children, sure. My wife travels an enormous amount. She'll have some of those conversations, but I get the lion's share.
Interesting perspective you've developed, I'm sure.
Oh, it's been quite the road.
All right, so give me 30 seconds. Tell everybody why you ought to be elected in the 1st District.
The things that I'm pushing for, I will get done. I believe that there is opportunity with this administration that they want positive, holistic things to get done. They need people to bring it to them that will marshal them through. All I can say is 24 years of doing what I did, pioneer in my field. Not too many, as a minority, having to deal with all of the different ways in which people are looking at you, judging you, and recognize that, hey, you know what? It's not me, it's them. and therefore you have a mission to fulfill. Fulfill your mission.
Interesting. Nice to meet you. Patrick Donovan, candidate for Congress, 1st District, running against David Cicilline. When we come back, Mr. Gordon, he's running against Mr. Neronha for Attorney General. Stay tuned. A minute now that you've got kind of a coast based on the election realities to the office. What are you thinking about during this rest time that you have?
Well, look, I've got an opponent. I'm taking the race seriously. But let me say this. There are a number of things that I think that the office has to do. Focus on public corruption. Deal with the opioid crisis. Think about criminal justice reform in a way that makes sense.
Former U.S. Attorney Peter Neronha, who is now clearly the odds-on favorite to win the Attorney General's office, but he is running, as he respectfully suggested, against Alan Gordon, the Compassion Party candidate for Rhode Island Attorney General. There is no Republican. What camera you got me on there, Kev? Am I working sideways? Whatever. There is no Republican, and there's no red light on the cameras either. Anyway, welcome. Nice to have you.
Tim, thanks.
What's this about, this candidacy?
Well, this week it's about a suddenly exploding controversy or scandal between State Rep Pat Morgan and the Google documents.
Yeah.
And this race is all about that. When I was campaigning to get on the ballot, collecting signatures, going all over the state and talking to the voters, and I mentioned the Attorney General's seat, that's what everyone wanted to know about, the Google money. What happened to it? How was it spent? Why a secret?
Okay. I've been around so long that I've got to like and start fresh. You're telling me that as you're knocking on doors and telling people that you're running for Attorney General, that unsolicitedly people in large numbers are bringing up this Google settlement thing?
Back in July, August.
That surprises me. Because if I went into downtown Providence today and asked 10 people randomly what do they think about the Google settlement, I'd be lucky to get one of them to know what they're talking about.
Perhaps those people who were interested in seeing an independent candidate running for that office, or seeing any other candidate preventing Peter Neronha from running unopposed, those voters who had an interest in the Attorney General seat we're already up to speed on this issue, but this is the #1 issue, and not just a plurality.
Okay,
I mean a
well,
majority.
listen, I think most of us agree that, well, I'm not going to make this assumption. I'm guessing you would agree with me that Peter Kilmartin has fallen down on this in terms of transparency?
Yeah, and generally I think across the board, both sides of the political aisle, he's lost political favor. I've met, while I was out canvassing for signatures, old friends of his who speak well of him as a person, but say that as an Attorney General, he's really let the state down.
So the Compassion Party means what to this race?
The Compassion Party is important. You know, it was founded by gubernatorial candidate Ann Armstrong, but I ran specifically to stop Mr. Neronha from running unopposed for such an important office. And now, as it turns out, I may be unopposed. I begged their party chair, the Democrats' party chair, to put forth another candidate because Mr. Neronha, unfortunately, is legally prohibited from doing the jobs for Rhode Island that are most important to Rhode Island voters.
What do you mean?
As the U.S. attorney who made the Google settlement, negotiated it and made it and awarded the money to a third party in that settlement, the state of Rhode Island, the state police, the state attorney general's office.
Well, he didn't award that money. The federal government did.
He was the federal government's counsel in the matter.
Well, the judge did.
There was no judge.
Well, this is a settlement.
It was not a court settlement because no indictment had been filed. It was an out-of-court, non-criminal settlement. It was not approved by a judge, and more importantly,
the U.S. Attorney's Office was not the last boss of determining where that money went from state to state.
It was, Jeff Sessions spoke about this in his confirmation hearings. When a U.S. attorney or a state attorney general accepts a settlement from a large entity, large amounts of money, it's in fact not in strict accordance with the law. It's sort of a payment to not fully enforce the law, and it sets not a binding precedent, but a precedent of expectation for other companies behaving similarly. So in the case of the Google deal, it was a sting operation that carefully recorded $500 million worth of unlawful pill sales being eagerly enacted by Google executives. And that's just what was in the sting. We know that was a tiny fraction of what was going on in real life with real pills being sold that way. And the money was awarded to a third party, the state of Rhode Island's Municipal Police Department, State Police and Attorney General's office. And Peter Neronha
And the town of North Providence.
Yeah, and the Peter Neronha was counsel in that, which means he has an ongoing duty to the federal government not to discuss the matter. And he is got a massive conflict of interest as the U.S. government's counsel in the matter. They can't then go represent Rhode Island in the same matter. And so you'll see in this mess with Pat Morgan.
He's no longer the U.S. attorney.
The duty is ongoing. A conflict of interest is a conflict of interest. You actually can't go and represent another side and say, well, I'm no longer working for them. That's conflict of interest. He's legally prohibited from speaking about the matter.
Other than your analysis, who would you credit to support your thesis here?
I think you can look at his answers when he's asked about what he would do with turning over the Google documents.
Sure, well.
Look at his answer. It's a big nothing burger because he's not allowed to turn those over.
Well, he's not in custody of the Google documents. He's no longer the U.S. attorney.
When he becomes the state attorney general, should he, and he won't,
right?
Because he cannot.
He talked to me last week about having more transparency with those documents than Peter Kilmartin has offered.
He's saying the right words, but in terms of what he can actually do, and I think somebody should ask him, are you legally allowed to discuss matters that where you're counsel for the United States, even though you're no longer? Do you have an ongoing duty of secrecy? And yes, he does, for matters that are classified, including negotiations. Do you have an conflict of interest representing a party in a matter where you represented another party in the same matter? Yes, he does have a conflict of interest. You can't do it. At the end of the day, he's trying to have won the money as the U.S. attorney, give some of it, a big chunk of it, to the Rhode Island State Attorney General's office in a less than transparent manner, and then go receive it. He can't do that.
There were
That's a trust
separate
violation.
investigative parties who proratedly earned that dough. To suggest that he was Santa Claus and gave it out to these other communities is a little misleading, don't you think?
No, I don't think it's misleading. It was a federal investigation that was so criminal, involving opiate pills, that if a street dealer were caught with 1% of that, he would have gone to prison for life. There would have been no non-criminal plea for money.
All right, well, listen, we're out of time. It doesn't mean the conversation's over. Let me get the other candidates' response, and perhaps you guys will have a chance to talk about it. So that was a surprise conversation for me today, which is nice on a Friday evening program. Nice to meet you. We'll be back in touch.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, final word when we come back. Stay with us. I thought the Compassion Party was about promotion of cannabis. We'll do a little homework on our last candidate's thesis, and like I said, we'll get back to you. It's always something, which is good, right? Always something. Enjoy your weekend. We will talk to the local NOW president, National Organization for Women, in reaction to the Kavanaugh hearings coming up on Monday, and we'll see you on the radio too, 3 o'clock on WPRO. See ya.